with you.
All right, we're live, and we are without Nolan today. So if you don't like the camera work, you can blame Terri, because
Mm.
you can blame Terri. There she is.
No, I'm not
Don't
touching
look up
nothing.
there. You last time you did it, it was all bad. You were all like, I didn't know what
It
camera
was
you were
nerves.
showing.
I know. It
Yeah.
was nerves.
See, now we got this camera. See, you can look there.
Oh,
Oh, look, now they can see
okay.
both of us.
Okay.
They can see how close we are. Everyone always thinks the table's real big and that we're sitting super far apart.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
All right. So, anyways, here we are. And like I say, we don't have Nolan, but we got a bunch of things I wanted to talk about. These are ones I normally talk about. I got to remember to do this. If you see I'm not switching the camera, you let me know.
Okay.
All right. Don't look at the screens. Just look at me.
Okay.
There's nothing to see
You know
there.
what I was noticing when you do the wide one of both of us? I almost just wore pajama pants.
Ah, ha, ha.
So I am very glad that I didn't. Okay.
Pajama.
I did. I almost wore my pajama pants.
Well, I normally don't even wear pants when I'm doing a
Oh,
podcast.
well, okay. That's not true. Whatever.
So I wanted to talk to you about all the political stuff going on. Were you there for the storming of the Capitol?
Was I there?
Yeah.
I'm so sure.
Is that where you
That's
disappeared
not what I
to?
want to protest. I don't want to protest that.
What were they protesting?
They were protesting the election,
What do
the
you
fraudulent election.
what do you want to protest?
Oh, I don't know. I just say that hypothetically, just, you know. I want to protest. I would protest no more lockdowns. I would do that.
Would you storm the Capitol for that?
Yes, with guns a-blazing. No, that was shameful. That's terrible.
It was terrible. I can't believe there's that many people who think that the election was that fraudulent.
Yeah.
Do you? Do you think it was like a big fraudulent election?
I think without a doubt we can basically prove that it was manipulated by media, by, just this. It's the same stuff everybody says. But I was sorely disappointed that there was no Kraken. I wanted the Kraken. I don't even know what a Kraken is, but I wanted it. It sounded big.
It sounded big. Isn't that from the movie?
I think it's an octopus or something. It's a giant animal of some sort.
It's from the movie. What is it?
thought it was a book.
The Johnny Depp movie. Yeah, the pirate movie, Pirates of the
Really?
Caribbean. Yes, and it's one of the later ones, one of the 15th one or
Okay,
whatever.
I wasn't interested in those. I don't know. I thought it was from a book.
It may also be
honestly.
from a book. I just
Okay.
know it's from the
I could be
from
wrong,
that
but-
movie, and they're going to release the Kraken, and it was this
Yeah.
huge sea monster that
A
comes
sea
up.
monster.
Right, comes up and like eats the boat or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they said they were going to release the Kraken, this huge.
Yes.
Yeah,
And I wanted it so bad.
I know.
No,
I
it was
knew
a
there wouldn't.
dud.
Well, I knew there was going to be no Kraken.
Well, I figured that was a possibility, but I was really hopeful. And I don't know, maybe it was all the drama of it, right? That you're intrigued by it. Like, what could it be? And I really hoped that they would come out more with the Dominion voting machines.
And what did you
Yeah.
think that they were going to find? What did you think they were going to find with that?
Well, I have no idea. Something good. I don't know. I don't know that much about I don't know, or not that much. I say nothing.
That's always funny to
software.
me when people that are talking about this say, yeah, I don't know that much about computers. I don't. And I'm thinking exactly what you're saying. They don't know nothing about computers.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of, when you don't know anything, you don't know what it can and cannot do or what it can and cannot show. So if they're talking about all this fraud, well, you figure there's a hacker, there's somebody in there that can release all this evidence from these machines I know nothing about, but there are people who do. And I'm always amazed of what people can do. So I didn't see it as far-fetched. It just didn't come, to realization. And that was a little bit disappointing. But there's a part of me that's relieved that he didn't get in there again for another 4 years.
I think there's a lot of people that are relieved.
There are a lot of people that are secretly relieved. It's like, oh, let it be somebody else. I'm more disappointed about the Senate and that they have both the Senate and the Congress. So I wasn't really worried at all before that, but now I'm a little bit more concerned about what's going to come next, and if we really are going to see suppression and oppression, and
Well, I think we're going to definitely see oppression of certain ideas being expressed.
yeah, it's already coming to light.
Right. I mean, Donald Trump's Twitter account has been banned permanently. Not just his account. He's been banned permanently. He can't sign up with another account.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone is like forwarding his messages, they'll ban them. I mean, that's why everyone's talking about all these accounts being taken offline and stuff. A lot of that is because they're passing on his messages. They're retweeting his stuff or tweeting his messages.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And so anyone who does that is considered to be their terms of services is that you're bypassing that you're not allowed on. So any way in which somebody could bypass how you can get on is not allowed. Look at this. I'll move this. Here, hold on. Let me see what I'm doing here. Wow. See what that looks like?
What am I looking at?
The screen there. We're both on.
Oh.
I don't have to switch anymore.
That's how you're going to leave it?
I think so, because I'm messing this all up. Nolan's very good at this, and I'm not. I'm very lousy at this.
All right. Let's do that.
Yeah, then I don't have to mess with that. Someone turned the heater on.
That's because it's 30 degrees outside.
Yeah, it's hot in here.
Okay.
I can control the whole house from my phone.
You feel very powerful, don't you?
I do. I have the power.
I hate it.
I can control your TV with it and everything.
Okay. That's another topic.
That's another topic. But then they're all these people that are leaving Twitter. A whole bunch of people are leaving Twitter too. See, when they say that they've lost all these followers, the different people on Twitter are saying how they've lost all these followers, and they're saying because Twitter's banning them.
Yeah, everyone's saying that.
Some of them, but I don't think that they're purging Twitter. I think people are leaving Twitter in droves. I mean, their stock prices plummeted since when they I say plummeted, it's gone down because I own Twitter stock. Okay. So that's cool.
See, that's new information.
You didn't know that,
no,
did you?
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I knew Pinterest.
Yeah, Pinterest is good stock. In fact, as soon as Biden was certified as the winner by the Congress, the Electoral College votes were certified by Congress, stock just skyrocketed.
Oh, nice.
I mean, like way up.
Okay.
Way up. Crazy amount. Everything went up except for Twitter. Of the ones I follow. Right. Right. So of the different stocks that I look at, not necessarily that I own, but I keep track of, Twitter stock went down. When they banned Trump, Twitter stock went down. And I think it's because half the country was motivated to, if they own Twitter stock, to sell it, to not be part of them, right?
Okay.
So as soon as you have people selling, your stock price is probably going to go down. So you have a lot of people motivated to sell. I don't know how many sold. I have no idea. But I know that the 80 million people who voted for Trump would all be motivated to not be part of Twitter.
Yeah.
If they banned him.
Right.
Not saying they all did that, but they were all motivated to do that. Yeah. Right. And then they're also motivated to cancel their Twitter accounts. So if you cancel your Twitter account, then whoever you're following loses that follower. So the people on Twitter that are saying that they're losing followers because Twitter is canceling accounts, that may be some of it. I think a lot of it is just because tons of people are leaving Twitter in droves, and Facebook. In fact, I know people personally who have said they're canceling their accounts on Twitter and Facebook.
Well, you know the movement, the walk away movement
Mm-hmm.
with Brandon.
Tatum?
No,
No?
no. Brandon Tatum is
Is
with.
is red pill black or
Yeah, it's the Blexit.
Blexit?
The
There you go.
Blexit. Yeah.
There's
So
so many of
Brandon
those, I
Tatum
can't
is
keep
the
track of them.
hashtag walk away. It's the whole walk away
Who
movement.
is
He is Brandon Stratton.
I don't know.
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
You do. He's openly
I
gay.
love how you know who I
Well,
am.
because we've talked about him.
Okay.
Yeah, he's openly gay, and
Mm-hmm.
so he has a lot of gay conservative followers. So it's this whole movement with like 500,000 people. Well, they banned him from Facebook now.
Right.
So, and a couple other things. So he was reaching out to all these senators. He's the one, he marches, he's at a lot of the political events. Anyway.
Yeah, they
banned him from
canceled his
Facebook.
account.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they canceled his huge account.
Yeah, it was a huge account.
Huge.
I did see that. I didn't know who it was. I just saw that the walk away account had been closed.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're definitely purging. There's a lot of purging going on. And of course their argument is that these accounts are inciting the violence.
Okay, that's just what makes me more angry than anything.
Really? Why is that?
Because the violence, this happened one time. Is Trump rallies, as far as I can tell, have been very, very, very peaceful. I mean, they're grasping for straws, any little thing.
Well, it's a
any little-
big straw when you storm the Capitol.
No, I know that. I'm talking about before then.
Okay.
Before the Capitol, they're trying to find anything that these Trump groups are, doing all this violence
Right.
until the Capitol. And that's what's just so, one of the things that's so terrible about it.
Well, the problem is you have all these people who think somehow that their anger over the election equates to 1776. And they think they're going to bring about the new independence. That's when the Declaration of Independence was signed, 1776. Because you look like you were confused there.
Well, I didn't hear that argument before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the whole thing. They call themselves the 1776 movement. We're going to do 1776. We're going to revolt against these overlords.
So that's what they were trying to do.
Yes, it's so dumb.
Yeah.
They don't realize, these people don't realize that the American independence was very exceptional in that it was not a mob revolt. It wasn't this mob revolt that raised up and stormed some government building and, sat up on. Do you see the crazy guy with the horns? And I mean, it really was comical. If one person hadn't have died, or two people, or however many, 4 people maybe have died now, it would have been all comical. It's just completely hilarious. I mean, ridiculous. Something that, in fact, a lot of people that we know from Mexico are posting all kinds of jokes about America now, how we're a banana republic. And now it's like you can't really
argue
against it. Although Mexico had that crazy, the guy who's the president now in Mexico, AMLO, Lopez Obrador, when he ran last election and lost, he did something similar. He didn't storm the actual government building, but he occupied the whole main plaza of Mexico City where the big flag is and turned that into his office of president-elect office. So he stayed down there. He said he was the legitimate president. People would come to him with their complaints. It was like this whole kabuki theater he did.
Goodness,
yeah.
that's terrible.
And and everyone laughs, at that, but that's essentially what these guys are trying to do. But anyways, the idea is that that somehow that's how the revolution started, and it wasn't. I mean, the whole reason we marked the date of 1776 was because that's when their Declaration of Independence was signed. And if you read that document, it's an argument written, very intelligent, very articulate, legal argument to the world. It was a letter that they wrote to the world explaining why they believed they had the right to secede from Britain, to be independent from them. So this is and it's something they did in committee, and it took a long time to get there. It took years before they finally agreed to write it, and then it took a long time to write it and revisions, and then they published that, and that was the beginning of the independence movement, at least formally.
Yeah.
Where this is a bunch of redneck yahoos
Mm-hmm.
or whoever they were,
Mm-hmm.
they're all kind of arguments. You got all kinds of people in there.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone who wanted to make some statement, they're going in. I just read that there was like they got, for instance, a CEO of a company stormed into the Capitol building. Well, now he's like in jail. He lost his job. He's like a huge embarrassment to his family.
That's terrible.
It's like, what are these people
I
thinking?
know.
I mean, what are they thinking? I don't get it. And I know a lot of people are upset with me because I say there's no evidence to the fraud. Do you believe there's evidence to the fraud? Do you have evidence? Because I would love to see some evidence.
You and your evidence.
Well,
I'm starting to really hate that word. Unless it's me on court, right?
Right.
No, I know. Well, okay, evidence as a legal term? No.
What other term is there?
My definition of evidence?
There's claims.
Okay, that's good.
Well,
Fraudulent claims. I mean, you just can't. I mean, you can't call all those. You can't call them all liars. What they saw.
Sure, you can. Or confused, or mistaken. There's a lot of things people can be and it not be true. People think they see a UFO. It doesn't mean that they did see one. It means they thought they saw one. People thought they saw election fraud.
Mm-hmm.
And if they actually saw some of it, it doesn't mean that there was nearly enough to make that difference they're talking about. If they saw any. And every example that I see put forward, which I assume are the best examples, I assume they're not giving us the worst examples, right? I assume they're giving us the very strongest possible case. All of it can be explained completely easily any other way. And some of it's just ridiculous. Like they'll show a box with shredded paper in it and say, those are Trump ballots.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's not evidence. That's nothing. That's a picture of a nondescript building and nondescript boxes and nondescript paper shredded up. These people have been watching too many movies.
So do you think, so what about when they say like thousands of dead people voted or more people voted than we actually have in the population? What about that?
Well, no, it's not true. Not more people voted than I've gone through and fact check as best I can, and I'm not an investigative journalist. I don't know if there are any investigative journalists left in the world, but I'm certainly not one. And so I've done it the best I could, and I cannot find, and that's me being I'd very much like to find fraud, not just to overturn this election, just because I believe our electoral system is a shambles, is a joke.
And then there's the mail-in voting.
Right. But every time I look at any of these, I can't find the evidence of any fraud. I can't find any.
Yeah, well, I know, and I've heard over and over by people who, that I listen to, this is, I'm sorry, people, there is no evidence there's no evidence that stands up to in court that would show that he's an illegitimate president.
I don't think there's any evidence that stands up to objective
80 million people, was it 80 million or very close, voted for Biden? Why
is that hard to believe?
I guess because you see nobody at his rallies. You didn't see anything. And I know I'm only looking at one side. It's just hard for me to believe that. I'm not saying it's true or not true.
But I say everyone, the majority of people who are going to vote for Biden are not going to go to a rally. They believe that the rallies were evil and that because of the pandemic.
Oh, and the pandemic.
Right.
Yeah.
They believe the rallies were evil. And they weren't necessarily. I don't think very many people are excited about Biden. I think they're excited about not Trump and not GOP, not Republican.
Yeah.
And so they are going to vote. I think that Donald Trump drove up the vote on the other side. Of course, a lot of people, including me, were saying that's exactly what his behavior was going to cause. It was going to cause the political left to come out gangbangers for the other side.
To get rid of him.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he just seemed to double down on that strategy every day.
I know.
And a lot of people were saying this is not going to go well.
Mm-hmm.
And
wondering if he was purposely trying to lose. That's how bad he was.
I know.
Behaving.
Yes. and all the way up to the end. And then he's out there doing a rally on the 6th. What did he think was going to accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
This is a problem with this celebrity culture.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. So I can't find, it's not just that it doesn't stand up in court, it's that it doesn't stand up at all to any objective look. You have to just want to believe with all your heart that there was fraud. It's the only way that stands up, is you have to just be dying to believe it and be willing to not think critically whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
You don't seem convinced.
No.
Are you convinced?
No, it's fine. No, it's true.
But didn't you think you were going to find it? That they were going to? Did you think they were?
Of course, I was hoping for it.
Well, I know, but did you think they were? Because I didn't think they ever were going to find anything.
Because they sound so convinced. What is her name? The Sidney
Powell. She got
Powell.
sued by Dominion for $1 billion. Which, is obviously they're making a statement. They're gonna, it's to, but I mean she damaged their
reputation.
Oh yeah, big time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that work at Dominion whose jobs are damaged.
She made very, very big statements. Like, this is going to be the worst thing we've seen ever in our history since ever. Just like, you just can't believe it. Heads are going to spin. She made such.
Yeah, and it wasn't like they suppressed her voice. She had press conference. She could have come out and gone through actual evidence.
Yeah, well, she just kept saying, with this magnitude, it just takes a lot of time, and we're working, 20 around the clock and getting it done, and we're going to show you, and you're going to see. And people who highly respected her believed her.
I think people who wanted to believe that believed
lying,
her.
Though. I don't know.
I don't think
she was lying.
Well, it depends what you mean by lying. See, people use lying very, very loosely. Was she purposely manipulating,
and was she purposely trying to deceive the American people?
Was she being deceitful? I don't think she was. I think she believed what she was saying. I think all these Trumpers believe what they're saying. I think all these people that are on there saying that there was fraud. I didn't even see her as a Trumper. Well,
I didn't think that she was. I thought she represented plenty of other people.
Yeah, but she definitely didn't represent Biden or the left or the Democrats.
But she was supposed to be basically unbiased. She's just going to do her job as an attorney.
But no one, as far as I know, did anyone hire her, or did she take it upon herself?
I don't know.
Because Trump came out saying that she was not part of his legal team.
No, I know.
Which was very weird.
Yeah.
Which was another joke, getting Giuliani to do that. Mm-hmm. I know that offends some people, but give me a break.
Poor guy. Oh. Yeah, I don't think they could have gotten anybody else. I think they were struggling to find somebody other than Giuliani.
Well, that should tell you something.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even left-wing attorneys would have loved to take the case and prove voter fraud, many of them, because it would have, I mean, that's a make your career thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you'd have to believe that every left-leaning attorney is in on the conspiracy, that they wouldn't want to go and make their career by proving something like that. There's this argument,
and I don't know if it's conspiratorial or not, but now that Trump is out, or if you find out to be wrong and Biden is elected, all this stuff, which is already proven to be, you've ruined your career as a Trump supporter. Like, I had heard and read that they don't want to hire anybody now who has worked for Trump. Like, basically, their careers are over. So I think a lot of these people in those circles, they got wind of that. And so they didn't want to get in within, 100 feet of him.
Well, that is
for
going
fear
back
of
to
their
the idea
career
of
in the future.
Right,
so.
That is going back to the cancellation that's going on right now,
Mm-hmm.
where anything associated with Trump seems to be that they're going to start canceling it and closing it down.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that can be like, you were mentioning this earlier when we were off camera, but about Parler or Parlay. Everyone calls it Parler. It's Parlay being, now they're taking it off of Apple devices. You won't be able to get it on any Apple device.
It was on this morning.
Yeah. What's that?
It was at least the feed was on this morning on my phone.
Right, but what
Checked
they're
it,
going to
not last
cancel,
night.
what the Apple has put an ultimatum to Parley
Yeah.
and told them that if they don't moderate, basically, and now if they well, let me get so if they don't moderate their platform,
Hmm.
that Apple will not allow them to have the app on Apple devices. And there's no other way to get there's no other way the majority of the normal person there's no way the normal person can get an app on their iPhone or iPad without going through Apple.
Yeah.
Google has taken it already off of their app store for putting it on Android phones and tablets. But there are other ways to get apps onto Google stuff, on Android stuff. Android's a little more open,
Hmm.
so you don't have to go to Google Play, but it is the biggest one.
Hmm.
But with iPhones and iPads, you cannot get an app if Apple doesn't allow it.
Yeah.
It's very locked down. And so so now Apple and Google are deciding not only what can be put on their own platform, but they're deciding that the phone that you bought is Apple's platform, and they get to decide what content you get to look at it.
So how does that work in a financial? How is there any financial incentive when you alienate half the country?
That there's no alternate providers. See, this is the problem. All the companies that are providing the devices, which the device is now king, not used to be software was king.
Hmm.
So, you'd have a computer and it's just this open box.
Yeah.
And you can put any software you want in there, including stuff you write yourself. Now they've come out with these phones, and Apple started this, where even who am a programmer,
Hmm.
cannot put things on Apple phones if Apple doesn't want me to. I'm physically locked out of doing it. They can lock me out of even putting it on my own phone, my own software that I write, for the most part. I mean, anyone who knows programming could quibble with me, but in broad strokes, that's the idea.
Okay.
And they have that kind of control. Whether they exercise it on an individual developer on his own personal phone, you can argue with that point, whatever. But the point stands across in generally speaking. That's where we are now. Now it's not software, it's the hardware. And the companies producing the hardware are super left wing.
Yeah.
So
and their staff, right?
the
I've
entire
heard that they kind of
company.
even did a petition almost on Twitter to get Donald Trump off.
Right. Yeah, no, they
pressure
employ
their
those
own,
people.
Right. You're right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're most of them are headquartered in places where you have a very high percentage of very left-leaning people.
Mhm.
So just the selection mechanism, normal selection mechanism for a job where you put out an ad saying we want people to hire people, well, you're going to get more left-leaning people. And as the culture trends left in a company, right-leaning people just rather not be there. I mean, who do you
It's
know that's
true.
real right-leaning that says, I want to go work for Twitter or I want to work for Apple and put up with all this
Mm.
sensitivity training and
Mhm.
all this stuff they're obviously going to do and
Yeah.
all the culture they're going to push? Right-leaning people just are, it's what's happening in Twitter and Facebook. As it becomes more left-leaning,
Mhm.
right-leaning people are leaving them, are abandoning Twitter and Facebook and going to other things or none at all, just not doing it. At our church, the joke is that Albert runs his own social platform. Have you heard this?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Albert has his own, for those that don't know. So if you're looking for a social media platform that is run by right-leaning, definitely pro-Trump people, Albert runs his own. It's
How's
his
that?
text messaging.
Oh.
He has like a group text message with everybody that he knows on it.
Okay.
Probably hundreds of people on his group text.
Uh-huh.
And so they text each other, and that's their social media
Oh,
now.
that's funny.
It is hilarious. So a lot. I say all.
Many.
We don't have many. So
Right.
the
Okay.
few that are in our church, that's what they do. That's their social media now. They're not doing Twitter or Facebook. They text each other through that group that Albert has. So Albert's running. I don't know if I should say that. Apple and Google might ban his
All right. All his.
his Albert book.
That's funny.
It is funny. It is hilarious that's how they're doing it. So, yeah, I mean, everyone's leaving Twitter and Facebook and going to alternate ones. So those are going to become more and more left-leaning. where there's just through everyone leaving. So if everyone who tends right leaves Twitter, well, there's not going to be anyone left there but all the left-leaning people. What they're fine with that. Because if you look at the what's it called, the GDP of left-leaning cities run by leftists and left-leaning counties, it's huge. There's a graph on the internet showing the actual, if you look at how many people voted for Trump, how many people voted for Biden, it's roughly half-half. It's a little more than Biden than Trump, but it's half-half.
Yeah.
And if you look at how many counties or landmass voted for one or the other, well, it's enormous favor of Trump. I mean, the majority of the land in America voted for Trump.
Yeah.
But when you look at how much of the money in America voted for each one, it's way disproportionate. Left wing. The left is huge when it comes financially.
I know.
The right
they have control of all of the main institutions in this country.
Well, they built the ones that are the main ones now. Where's the right?
It's true.
Where is the right innovation? Where are the rightists that are in academia? Where are the professors? Where are the research professionals, the research professors and scientists? And where are all the right? There are none.
How come?
Because they don't believe in education.
Well, that's a very broad statement.
I know. I'm painting with an extremely broad brush.
That's like really big.
But when you look at it, when you look at the numbers, that's just the truth. There isn't all these highly qualified, right-leaning scientists that are being forbidden from working somewhere. That's not what's happening. There's not these really innovative, creative, right-wing people who are developing Twitters and Facebooks and other things. None of them. Where are their developments? Where are their innovations? There is none. They don't have any.
I'm not sure. It's not making sense to me, the education. They don't believe in education theory. I think there's much more to it than that.
Of course there's more to it, but I think that's... why do you think they believe? What makes you think that the right believes in it?
I'm wondering if it's just more psychological. I wonder if it's just the way we think, our view on life. And so we tend to be not as artistic.
But you understand the reason for that is because you're not progressive.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need education of the sort that's going to lead to innovation if you believe that we don't need to progress.
Because we're mainly a blue-collar society when it comes to conservatism.
Conservatism by its nature means to conserve, not to progress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just keep what you have.
Yeah.
So the right puts high emphasis on education that promotes what we already have and maintains it. So they love history. Don't really like liberal arts that much.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really interested in something that will push the envelope or will advance anything. They just want to keep teaching and indoctrinating what we already have.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a value to that. I'm not.
Yeah.
If you're hearing this and you're thinking that's horrible, then you probably lean progressive. If you heard what I just said and you think that's wonderful, then you definitely lean conservative.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that is the nature of conservatism. Anything new is suspect. Anything new.
That's true.
The old has been proven to be right. Why would you change that? Why would you do anything different than what we've already done? When 300 years ago, the founders set up this perfect system, why would we change that?
Which is why socialism is taking steam, because it's new, because they don't like history, and they think that they can do something different. What are you looking at?
Josh Coffey's watching. He says, the connection has been disputed. This comment has been disputed by our independent fact checkers.
Which is him or what?
Yeah.
You need to join us, Josh. Okay.
And I'm pretty sure he wrote that. It's hilarious.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry.
No, that's okay. I forgot what I was saying though.
Yeah. But anyway, well, we were talking about the nature of conservatism and progressivism.
Oh, and I was talking about why socialism is getting a whole new what did I say? It's getting a whole new push. It's getting, it's becoming
It's got new legs.
Yeah, and fashionable.
Mm-hmm.
Because now they don't necessarily like history. They think that they can change history and do it new and improved socialism. I think seems like that's what they think.
Well, see, if you're progressive, you believe that what we need to do is we need to have everything new, not mind. Conservatives want to tweak at the best, want to perfect to a degree, or recapture a perfection they believe has been lost in the case of constitutionalists, right? They think that the original way the United States was designed, the founding fathers, they love the fathers, they made this system, it was perfect, and we've gotten away from it. And so conservatives want to go back to what we have. Progressives want to go forward to something entirely new. They don't want to adjust or tweak. They want everything new. That's progress. Progress is new. Progress is not a faster horse, right? Progress is a car.
Yeah.
Right? Conservatives, if they were running the automobile industry, then we would have faster horses, slightly faster horses, more original horses. We'd have an originalist horse party where we'd go back to the original horse, try to find the original horse.
I don't think so. Don't be stupid. No.
It's true. That's how. That is the underlying philosophy of these two sides, and it's the constant tension that exists there. And it's a necessary tension.
There are people, many people who are not so far right or so far conservative that they're totally against any kind of invention or intervention, or not intervention, just progression. There's a lot of people, very, very smart
people. Well, yes,
people.
it's a spectrum, right? And there's people, but the philosophy of conservatism is to value, to prioritize,
right, I understand
not
that.
changing.
Yes.
That's the philosophy. And the philosophy of progressivism is to value constant change. Progressives
at the two
want
extreme
constant.
ends.
Well, that's what they value. It doesn't mean that they pursue it in every aspect. And that's what people don't realize. Just because you can point out inconsistency in the way a person behaves
Right,
as opposed to their underlying philosophy doesn't mean that's not their underlying philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
They have an underlying view that we need constant change to progress. We need to leave from what we had and move to something better constantly.
Yeah.
And conservatives have want
to slow it way down.
They don't want to slow it down. They want to stop. They want to keep what we've had. They don't want to change. This is the broad view, the philosophical underpinning of their worldview.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you can you take individual samples, each individual person, and say, well, they say they want that, but then they want to keep this. They say they want that, but they want to change that. Of course you can, because we're all extremely conflicted in our own minds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nobody's true to their own views completely, because the world is, our views are simple. No matter how nuanced you see the world, it's extraordinarily simple as contrasted to how the world really is.
Yeah.
So the world is like this incredibly complex, more than we don't have language to describe its complexity. That's the problem. We're not able in our own minds to fathom the complexity of the world, the natural world, the political world, social world, everything that is the world, we can't. So we have these very simple maps that we lay on there, and we try to act according to whatever our map is. Progressive have a map of saying the world needs to get better. Everything needs to change. And conservatives have a map that say we did it right. We need to stick with where we're at. We don't need to go out. And this, an evolutionist would tell you that this goes back to the cave days, where you have these two cavemen in the cave, and one of them wants to go out and see what's in the world outside the cave. And the other one's like, the cave has kept us safe all these years. Why would we leave the cave? If we leave the cave, we could die. And so there you have this tension between, do we leave our cave and go out and risk death, but maybe we find something wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or do we stay in the cave and we have our logs and our fire and the beast we killed and drug in? Why would we want to leave this when this has worked and it's worked for, well, millions of years? Millions of years we've lived in the cave and it's
Yeah.
all been fine. Why would we ever leave the cave if it's safe? That's the tension. That is the tension between, not between left people and right people. That's the wrong way to look at it. It's the tension between progressing and conserving. Neither one of those are bad.
Mm-hmm.
To believe that progress is bad is stupid.
Yeah.
And to believe that conservation is wrong is also stupid.
Yeah.
Because everybody does both.
So then are we just doomed to becoming a socialist and communist country because of that?
Yeah, democracy dooms us to that from the beginning. That was why the founders of America hated democracy. Because democracy leads to socialism. Because if you can vote, see, this is the reason why they restricted voting rights so strongly.
Mm-hmm.
This is why progressives don't really like the founders. The founders did not believe in universal suffrage. It wasn't just women who they didn't want voting. They didn't want most people voting. Right? They did not set up a democracy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They set up a representative republic. Everybody gets, quote unquote, a vote in the sense that your representative will vote for you. Not everybody gets to elect that representative.
Okay.
Right? That was how they set it up. And that's because they believed, and it makes sense. If you give people the vote, what stops them from voting your money into their pockets?
Right.
I mean, in the end, if you're run by mob rule, which is what democracy is, that 51% of the people can tell everyone else what to do,
Mm-hmm.
then what stops those people from saying, we want your stuff?
Yeah.
And we're going to do it legally. We're going to vote for you to give us all your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, democracy leads to that. It's inevitable. And the safeguards that the founding fathers of America put in place worked for a while.
Like the electoral votes.
The
Is that what
electoral
you're-
college, representative republic system, the way the senators were elected, that they weren't elected directly, that got changed later on, but they purposefully made it where you elected your congressman directly, so
Mhm.
you would actually go and vote for a congressman, and but you didn't get to vote for senators.
Mm-hmm.
The state legislature
Voted for
elected the
their
senators.
Okay.
They elected
To represent
senators.
them in the Capitol in
Right.
Washington.
So
Okay.
senators originally were meant to represent the state, the legislature of the state, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
which was elected by people. So it was you
Yeah.
got these levels of abstraction, which whenever you have levels of abstraction, that protects you from certain harms that can come about. And so you as an individual in a state of Texas would elect legislators. They would elect senators, and then the Senate would go, and they had a tremendous amount of power, but they weren't beholden to individual voters. They didn't campaign. Senators didn't go and campaign around, talk to people. That's not how the Senate worked back then.
Mm-hmm.
It was what they would now call the what did they call it? The old boy network or something. Can't think of the term right now. Anyways, it was a machine, right? They were in with the legislature. It was all buddies and who they knew and who they trusted, and it was this whole this network of things is how the Senate worked. And the congressmen were all elected by people, so they're the ones out campaigning all the time because they have to be elected every 2 years by the citizens of their district.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas senators was every 6 years, and they were basically appointed by the legislature. Well, that all changed. So we've taken away more and more of these safeguards that were put in place to keep us from being an unbridled democracy. People want to make their own, don't want that type of constraints on them.
Yeah.
So they want universal suffrage. They want felons to they think felons should be able to vote, and children now, they're trying to get children. It won't be long and we'll have 15-year-olds voting, which is just ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous that 18-year-olds can vote. I think you ought to be 30 before you could vote. And male. No, I'm joking.
I'm like, no.
No, I don't actually think you should. I don't think women
No,
should not
I
vote.
know, I know that. Hmm.
So that's the
So,
tension between the two, and it's inevitable. It's inevitable for there to be, and neither side can accept. I'm not saying nobody on either side, but neither side can accept that the other is legitimate and necessary. So progressives think that conservatives need to go away,
yeah.
and conservatives think progressives need to go away. They don't. Neither side sees a value in the other side. I'm not saying nobody in there does, but I'm saying the sides themselves
Right.
do not see that the other side is necessary. We don't have a cultural reality like Koreans, for instance, with the yin yang ideas,
Mm-hmm.
where they believe that the light and the dark, their flag
Yeah.
is the yin yang, is that
Yeah.
the symbol, and that's because these cultures, they believe that they're that both sides of a thing
Have value.
are equally necessary.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be whole if you only have one,
Right.
right? And that is culturally indoctrinated in, like, Koreans, Asians, that view. Now, how it affects their politics, I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
I just know that that's really built in, and so they see both sides of things as being very necessary. And to an extreme, perhaps, and with they
Doesn't
embrace.
that go even good? That kind of goes against human nature. Like, that's hard to do.
Well, of course it's hard. It's why it has to be indoctrinated. It's why it's on their flag. It's why
Aren't they communists, though?
not South Koreans. No,
Okay.
no. South Korea's
It's North Korea.
North Korea's communist. Yeah, I think their
'Cause that
circle
would
is
make-
all black. I
was
don't think
gonna
there's any
say
light in
that
their
makes
circle.
Zero sense then.
But the point here isn't that will naturally lead to democracy. What it does lead to is a view,
An appreciation.
an
at
appreciation
least.
that opposing viewpoints aren't just to be tolerated, but they're actually necessary to the balance of life. And I don't think
Although
that
conservatives or maybe not just conservatives, but libertarianism tends to think that's necessary. You do need both sides. Seems to me like
I don't think
we
they think
seem
that.
a lot more tolerant of the other side. We're not trying to ban people or deplatform
It's easy to
people.
say that when you don't have a platform to deplatform them from.
People who do have platforms say
Who?
that. All kinds of people.
No one has platforms.
Well, from Parlor.
That is so tiny. If they ban people, they wouldn't have anybody. It's easy.
But that's their
when-
platform. That's what they say. You're not calling for people to lose their jobs. You don't hear that the way
It's-
you hear it on the other side.
Because they don't have the power to do it yet. It doesn't mean much, is what I'm saying. I know they like to think of themselves that way,
Mm-hmm.
but I've known plenty of right-leaning parties who are all for cancellation.
What do you mean?
Of people
you know
they don't agree
plenty
with.
of right-wing parties. What are you talking about?
Parties of, not whether it be individuals or organizations or groups. Not parties like political parties, but parties as in entities.
Like what? What do you mean?
Well, I'm not going to name names.
Are you talking about individuals?
I'm talking about individuals. I'm talking about groups,
But you said
organizations.
people who actually have a voice, like have a large platform. Or
Yes, they're. Now you're confusing me.
okay, well then I'm
I'm
confused.
saying it's easy to say that you don't agree with cancellation when you have no way to cancel. It's easy to say that. When you actually have the kind of power that Twitter has, that Facebook has, that Apple has, that Apple can decide overnight that you're not allowed to use an app and it disappears from every iPhone in the world overnight. All they do is push a button and the app is gone from your phone. You have no access to it.
No, I know.
Okay,
Right.
I don't know of any right-wing entity that has that kind of power to then go and preach about how incredibly tolerant they are. When you don't have that kind of power, it's real easy to say that you don't want anybody canceled. But when you look at it in a microcosm, I find there's plenty of right-wing entities
Mm-hmm.
that not only are all for cancellation of things they think ought to be canceled, but practice it. And my point is, we cancel people out of our homes who we'll invite over. I mean, why don't we just let anyone who wants to walk in our front door walk in?
Right. Well, that's like people who are taking themselves off of Twitter and these other things or Facebook. Is that what you mean by they?
No,
are
I mean, well,
practicing
they're
it?
doing their own thing. I'm saying we don't let anyone who wants to come in our house and say whatever they want to say do so. We don't let anyone walk in our church and say whatever they want to say. Why aren't our churches open forums for anyone to come in and talk anything they want to say?
Mm-hmm.
Even churches like ours that have open meetings don't let anyone come in and say anything they
No,
want.
right.
Not even reasonable. Not even within reasonable boundaries does that happen. We know of churches that have open meetings that won't let reasonable discussion take place. Never mind heretics that will police what they call the open meeting. This isn't an accusation or I'm not angry about that. I'm just saying we shut down discourse all the time.
Mhm.
Now, they will likely say, well, we have a good reason for that, or we have good, or this is different. That's what everyone says.
Mhm.
That's what Twitter is saying.
Mhm.
They're saying, we have good reason for it. This is different. My point is, do you really think of the most pure, tolerant, who can you think of someone like that? So you talk about these right-wing people that are like crazy tolerant. They're like super.
Well,
Can you think of a person who is right-wing, who is tolerant like that and just really appreciates all forms of opinions and is open to hearing all forms of discourse?
somebody like there's that Eric Erickson who he has a podcast.
I mean,
There's-
someone you know.
Oh, no, personally?
Yeah, that
I
you
don't
can
know that
prove it
many
because it's
people.
easy for someone to put on a persona.
Right.
Well, it doesn't have to be someone famous. I'm not even
Mhm.
asking for a name. I'm just saying, can you think in your mind of somebody who you know has strong conservative values, who is very tolerant of progressive values?
Because progressive values have gotten a little crazy.
That's my point.
Well, they've gotten crazy.
Well, that's what they say about conservatives, and I have
Yeah.
to agree with them to an extent.
Right.
Do you realize that
Well, they do
If-
say that about conservatives
if-
because of
do you
Trump,
realize-
it seems like.
it's before Trump? Do you realize that if Ronald Reagan ran today, he would be considered almost a leftist?
Okay.
Nixon would be a leftist. He'd be in the Democratic Party if he ran today on the way he was then.
Hmm.
This isn't just the left that's gone bonkers. Both sides have just split off and have gone to an extreme side. And the storming of the Capitol, in my opinion, is just evidence of this.
That's a very small very small part of that movement.
I don't think it is.
I do. I think the majority of people have condemned it. I don't know a single person who has not.
But it's a different. I'm not saying that 70 million Trump voters would have went and actually entered into the Capitol building. But there's what I'm saying is that this view that somehow they need to take back the government and there's all this election fraud and all these things. This is all way out there. It's way out there. If somebody listening right now honestly believes that there is indisputable large amounts of election fraud that changed the election and that fabricated millions of votes, they're way out there. And there's a lot of them that believe that. A lot of people that I used to think were normal are completely convinced.
So they're not normal?
That's not normal. That's not normal. To believe something that huge with no evidence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had on Brett, who's like convinced of this, and he does more research than anybody. That's why I asked him to come on the podcast. It was not to argue with him. I really thought he would have evidence because Brett does nothing but research whatever he's interested in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he reads and reads and reads and does all this research. I thought if anybody that I know is going to have evidence of it, who's going to be able to give me some real evidence, it'll be Brett. He didn't have anything, not a shred, not one element of evidence. I don't think it's out there. And part is because of the death of investigative journalism in our society. And I don't mean just name journalists. I mean the idea that you have to actually prove something. It's like that one of my favorite movies is that Spotlight. Remember that movie? I love that movie. Great movie. But look how long it took them to develop that story. All the work that went into that. You watch that movie and read the book on it and go back and read the interviews with them and what they did. It took them years before they published that story.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine? I mean, if you're them and you basically know this has happened, you have got enough that you're convinced. These reporters, just using them as an example, they have enough. They've talked to it. They have witness statements. They have all kinds of incriminating circumstances they've come across and things. And you know these priests are molesting children.
Mm-hmm.
And you can come out and you can publish that in your newspaper and put an end to it and save all these kids. Can you imagine the pressure on you to publish, even if you don't have it nailed down solid, and to wait for years to do it, knowing, have to live that you knew and you could have come out half-cocked and maybe put an end to it, but you didn't, and more kids are being molested every day
In the meantime.
and you're not doing anything because you know you don't have that kind of evidence.
Right.
That they actually had to get somebody from inside the circle of abuse to confirm the things that they knew they could essentially prove.
Mm-hmm.
That is a level of evidence, right? Of that we just have completely lost, it seems, these days. Now, because of social media and everything be turning opinion oriented, you don't need evidence. You can just make claims. And that's what Twitter and Facebook and the news and Fox News and all of them are, in my opinion. I know we don't agree on this. But in my opinion, all of these news organizations, quote unquote news organizations, all of these media platforms, they're just opinion. And now we're going to ban people because their opinion is not good. Nobody wants news anymore. Nobody's interested. It's boring. It's boring and it's slow. We want it breaking news. This is why so many people decry the 24-hour news cycle.
I was just going to say that because we have it for 24 hours.
Right, you have to have something.
Yeah.
You have to get those eyes on.
Yeah.
It used to be the news was 1 hour a day. 1 hour of your day was spent catching up on what's happening in your city, in your state, in your country, and in the world.
Yeah.
And they'd break that hour up in that way. And now, none of that. You don't know what's happening in your city, hardly. Nobody's interested in that. That's not interesting. Because you need the craziest possible story you can find. And so you have to ransack the world to find it because there's not that many crazy things happening in the world that you can be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that there's going to be a camera there, that there's going to be someone there to report it. Yeah. Something really crazy, sensational. And so we have to ransack the world. So all news has become world news. It's the only way to get that quantity of craziness. And then it needs to be sensationalized above that. And then nobody's interested in a repertoire of it. They want commentary on it. Highest rated news programs are all opinion. Maddow, Hannity, Glenn Beck, whoever, I don't know, whoever they are.
Yeah, he has his.
They're all opinion.
Yeah.
None of them are actual news and nobody's doing actual reporting. and nobody's bringing any evidence of anything. It's all just unsubstantiated claims. Like, for instance, the photo. A real journalist of that photo of the ballots that were supposedly shredded would have figured out a way to get their hands on those ballots, even if it were illegal. Somehow they would have gotten them. And then they would have started the hard process of actually piecing together, taping together that shredded paper and come up with the documents and prove the case.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, what is journalism? With a cell phone from about 100 feet away, they snap a picture and say, that's what this is. Not a single one of those put together saying, see, this is what this is.
Right.
This is this ballot, and this is what it's for, and we track down that person, and we have video of that. Nobody, almost nobody is doing that. And the ones that are, no one's interested. They just want claims.
Mm-hmm.
And that's both sides. Both sides are just working off of claims of things. Forget that's not a touchscreen. That's a problem with phones and iPads, is that now I want to touch every screen.
Yeah, just
my
switch
computer.
Devices.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because they're not all touch. Yeah, it is a pain. And I'll sit there and I'll do it. So if I'm like distracted, it'll take me, seconds before I realize why it's not working.
So I want to totally get off of the election fraud. I didn't even want to talk about it in the first place.
I did.
I can tell. Anyway.
Because I like to make people real mad. And everyone gets mad when I talk about that.
Okay. So what's pressing to me right now is what's coming next in the next couple of years and how far they can go with the speech suppression and what that does to us as Christians, or do you think it's going to go much further than it already has now?
Well, of course, because again, the nature of progressivism is to constantly move forward. And if they believe that keeping people from saying naughty things is valuable, well, then that's where they're going to move forward on that.
And then they're the judge of what's naughty and what's nice.
Well, just like the right is the judge as well. The right has decided what can and cannot be said.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't. There's times on prime TV where you can't say certain words.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? How is that not suppression? So we say, but that's different.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So the right has been doing this for centuries. Everyone has been doing this. Nobody wants to hear things they don't think should be said. We just have different views on what shouldn't be said. So the right, conservatives may not want to hear profanity. They may not want to hear blasphemy. They may not want to hear sedition. The left doesn't want to hear, what they deem as intolerance and phobias.
So what do you then we should be okay with the speech suppression because we all do it? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying that we need to be a little more honest about what we're actually talking about. That the right is not arguing. I say the right. There are some, but I'm just saying in general, the common average right-leaning person it needs to be realized that they're not really trying to fight for freedom of speech. They do not want their speech suppressed, and they want to be able to suppress other people's. And they say they don't, but they do. They do. Because again, well, then why don't you open up your churches? How is a church any different than Twitter?
Mm-hmm.
Twitter's a private company.
Anybody walking in and saying whatever they want to say.
Right. Why doesn't every church allow anybody to come in and stand up and say whatever they want to say? We say, no, that's different. Well, the left looks at that and says, no, it's not different. It's the same thing.
Okay, so how far does the government go saying that? Because there's a lot of different churches. So if you don't like what one church says, you can go to another church and you can like what they say.
And if you don't like
we have that freedom.
And if you don't like how Twitter does, you can go to a different platform.
Assuming there's one. Anyway,
well, there are.
So how far does the government go in saying what a preacher can and cannot say? So no matter what church you go to, they're all saying the same
So here's
thing.
the deal.
Is it going to come to that?
Well, maybe, but they would have to change the law. So when people talk about freedom of speech in the First Amendment,
Mm-hmm.
that applies to the government. This is what people don't understand. That the Constitution does not limit what private companies can do. It does not limit what churches can allow you to say in their church or what Twitter can allow you to tweet on their platform. That's not what the First Amendment does. It doesn't mean that that your employer can't tell you that you're not allowed to say something at your job. That's not what the First Amendment does not guarantee those rights.
Right, and that makes sense to me.
It
Yeah.
only means the government cannot tell people what they can't say.
Okay.
And that's why, even though Canada tells preachers that they cannot speak on homosexuality against it. They can speak for it all day long, but they can't speak against it. But the U.S. can't do that without getting rid of the First Amendment, either formally or by fiat. They would have to, one way or the other, they would have to get rid of the First Amendment somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be very, very difficult. Not that it's not impossible, but it's very difficult. But all that keeps from happening is the government saying what can and can't be said.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't keep any private company from doing it. And you can get in, they go all into Section 230 and whether or not Twitter is the public square now and all that. But at the bottom of the barrel of all that is that these phone devices, these applications are privately developed, privately owned.
Right.
Privately
So
being
how
not
is
owned by
it
the
that
government.
they can sue and win against cake bakers who will not bake a cake, their own business to
Because of the Civil Rights Act. This is why people like who's the guy that ran against Lyndon Johnson and lost? Barry Goldwater. This is why people who like Barry Goldwater, who were the furthest possible thing you can imagine from a racist, if you go back and look at his personal history, were against the passing of the civil rights legislations because they believed that it was going to lead to that. It was going to take away people's freedom of association.
Yeah.
He did not like that people would freely choose to discriminate against blacks. But he wanted people to have the freedom to make the choices they want to make. It's a terrible thing, and I'm not advocating for either side.
No, right, of course.
Right? I see having a society where people can say, because of the color of your skin, you're not allowed in my store, is a society we may not want to live in. I don't want to live in a society that's like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that do want to live in that society and did want to do that. And so they used a very blunt tool to try to fix the problem, which is the problem. The law is extremely blunt. It's not. It is using a tank to kill a fly. And I don't want to make racism out to be little, but I'm just saying that's not a good analogy. But it's using a dull knife to perform a necessary surgery. That's what the law is. Because the problem is that people in their heart want to do those things. So passing laws stating you can't do it they're going to have to be extraordinarily onerous, and they're going to have incredible amount of of unintended consequences.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what happens when they pass a civil rights law.
Yeah.
Well, now you can't stop there, because now homosexuals are going to say, well, why doesn't that apply to us? So the baker cannot refuse to bake a cake for a black person. That's illegal.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people would agree with that. If that same baker, if a black couple came in and said, we're going to have a wedding,
Mm-hmm.
and we want you to make us a cake, and he says, I'm sorry, I don't make cakes I don't think black people should be allowed to be married. So I don't make cakes for people like that. Well, would you agree with him being sued?
Mm-hmm. Because of the civil rights.
But would you personally agree with it? Would you
Him
think?
being sued?
I mean, obviously
I
you would
don't
say it's
know.
legal, but do you
I don't
think
know. I
it's...
think my emotions would get in the way. So I don't know I don't know if it could, because I believe that a baker has a right to refuse service.
So he can refuse to make a cake for black people. Do you think what if you and your black friend went to a
Depends
restaurant?
on how far I want to take that.
I'm just asking you your own
I
personal view.
I don't know. That feels like a loaded question in a way.
It's yeah, no kidding.
Mm.
I personally would be agreement that the law should not allow a baker to not bake a cake for a black couple. I don't want a society like that.
Mm-hmm.
What about if it's a black man and a white woman who are going to get married? And he says, I'm sorry, I don't believe in mixed race marriages, so I won't make you a cake.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people would say, yeah, no, he can't do that.
Because it seems so foreign, like we're not in the 1960s. So it seems so irrational.
Back again to progressivism and conservatism.
And then because I'm also thinking, a Christian perspective. So it depends on where I want to, put my morals, where I'm going to really enforce what I believe morally.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
But you understand my point that I'm trying to make.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
The
I
point
understood
is,
it. Yeah.
Yeah, the point is, we look at that and go, no, we agree with that. But then we come and say, well, what about a gay couple? Oh, no, that's different. See, everyone thinks their case is different. And Christians will say, but there's
you have
this
a moral conscience, right? A Christian. So so let's just get away from the law. How does a Christian handle that in good conscience?
If
Like
I'm a Christian
very
baker, I'll bake a cake.
fundamental, you would?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If I'm a Christian baker and a gay couple, a threesome couple, or anybody comes in and wants to buy my product,
okay.
I'm just saying, I don't approve of that. I'm not saying I'm okay with it, with their
Right.
lifestyle, but I'm not making them sex. I'm making them a cake,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's my product. And I sell it to people who are going to take it to their mistress.
Do you think that those are misguided who refuse to make a cake?
I do.
That's interesting.
Yeah. What if a man came in, I'm a baker, and a man comes in and says, I want you to make me a cake for my mistress. Well, shouldn't you refuse on the same moral grounds that that's adultery?
Yeah.
I'm living with my girlfriend. Would you make me a cake for her birthday? No, I'm sorry. I'm against fornication. I won't make cakes for fornicators.
Yeah. Where do you stop?
How is that different?
Mm-hmm.
They're making this statement based on... Now, I think that Twitter should also be held to the same standard, which means they can't kick people out of their store for saying something they don't agree with.
Right.
So the standard is all...
It's all mixed up.
Everybody is saying their case is different.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the left that's so terrible. They are terrible. The right is terrible too. The middle is terrible. Everybody's terrible. Everybody is saying that their case, their cause, their conscience is different than everyone else's. And therefore, it's legitimate for them to behave the way they won't allow anyone else to behave. They're all doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's doing it. The difference is that we have given certain companies, very few companies, which means very few people, a very small number of people, complete control over our ability to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have basically thrown away the capacity to communicate without a device. You can't reach customers without it. You can't speak in the quote-unquote public square without it. You can't run for office without it.
Mm-hmm.
We've decided...
You can't run a business?
Nothing. We have decided we are going to make these little cell phones in our hands. We're going to turn that into our entire world. And so if whoever controls that device... See, people thought, well, I'll just put whatever app I want on. Apple says, no, you won't. We don't agree with
Basically,
parlay.
we've made them more powerful than the government.
They are. They banned the president of the United States.
They did.
Can anyone fathom
I know.
what we're talking about here?
I know.
They banned the president of the United States.
Yeah.
They can decide that the president of the United States is not allowed to speak to those people that are there through that media, that the government is subsidizing because they subsidize the internet itself.
Right.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane where we're at. And it's not going to get any better. We're giving these people we're giving these people like Apple and Google and Twitter to some extent, Facebook, we are
YouTube.
giving about 10 companies complete control over every aspect of our life. They have access to every secret you own, all your passwords, all your photos. There's no aspect of your life, and we are doing it wholesale. We are documenting the most private and intimate parts of our life to put up on their platforms so they can generate ad revenue and get richer.
Yeah.
And there is no good answer to it. What are you going to do? Well, what a lot of people on the right are doing is they're just getting off. Not going to be on Twitter, not going to be on Parlay, not going to be on anything. Well, in a digital world, what you're doing is you're committing digital suicide.
How do you mean?
The whole world is digital. If you're not on those things, you don't exist. There's no alternate.
So is that a bad thing?
Yeah, it's a bad thing. Absolutely. It's what happened when Christianity, mainly through the Catholic Church, but Christianity in centuries gone by, retreated to monasteries. And then wondered why the gospel retreated out of society. But they're off living in a monastery, cloistered up in some monastery. So they don't have to, they're not going to be part of it. It's like, you know what? The world has gone to hell in a handbag and we're not going to be part of it. So we're going to go lock ourselves up in this monastery and be holy. And then they look at the world and go, well, the world is getting really, really bad real fast.
Yeah. Right.
But then the option is, if you're going to engage, you have to engage according to the rules that the gatekeepers are setting. There's no good answer. I see people saying, I'm not leaving Twitter because if we all leave Twitter, then that means our voice is no longer heard at all. Other people are saying, but if we stay in Twitter, we're feeding the same monster that's doing all this. Or Facebook or whichever one it is.
It just keeps coming back around.
Yeah. And they used to say, look, if you don't like Twitter's rules, make your own Twitter, which is what Parlay tried to do. Or we, or whatever it's called, is the Facebook alternative. Parlay is like a Twitter alternative.
Yeah.
Which part of the problem with these is they're...
I believe
yeah. Part of the problem with all these apps is they're just lousy. Twitter, one reason Twitter's popular is because it works, and these other ones are garbage. Anyway, that's beside the point. That's from a programmer standpoint.
I haven't even seen the other one, though.
Either have I. I'm very much. Very little, but they're garbage apps. They don't work right. Anyway, my point is that, they say, well, just make your own. But now you have to make your own phone. You can't just make your own app.
Unless you abide by their rules.
Because Apple can now tell the app makers who have a platform what people on their own, on that other platform are allowed to say for the app to be on their phone. It's just they've abstracted out the control they have over these things. It's no longer saying we're going to control the people on Twitter. Saying about Donald Trump says when they first gave him a temporary suspension, they said we're going to be watching what is tweeted and what he says outside of Twitter. So now Twitter will ban people based on things they say, not on Twitter. So you can have a Twitter feed where all you do is say, the left is beautiful, I love the left. And that's fine. That'll run forever. But if you, in your own private, outside of Twitter, just talking,
say the opposite,
say something that they don't agree with, they will cancel your Twitter. You're not allowed to have an opinion. It's not that you're not allowed to express that opinion. They are now looking, stormtroopers, they are peering through your digital windows. It's the Stasi. They're East German Stasi. They are peering through your digital windows, trying to find you having an opinion they don't agree with, and they will cancel you. They are not trying to police their platform. They're trying, their goal, they have a very lofty goal in their mind, very lofty goal that they are going to fundamentally purge the world of bad opinion. That's where we're at. And now we find out, hey, wait a minute. These same companies not only control the software and the platform, they control the device.
Okay, so they say that very few Americans, in comparison, like to how many Twitter people there are, and or even participating in. I imagine they have millions of people have an account, but they're not really participating in a lot of these things because most of my friends don't.
Yeah.
So like I'm the only crazy one out there that loves Twitter. Anyway, so they're not as affected by it. Like they don't really see how they're being affected free speech. Although, but if you go into their institution, like their place of employment, the school district, or being school teachers or being in the universities or whatever, it's there too, right? They're limited to what they can say. It's like it's infiltrating into all of the large institutions, and so
Oh, absolutely.
we're all affected by it, even if you're not really engaged politically.
That's right.
Like very few people honestly are engaged politically,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems like it's just affecting, like nobody nowadays is immune. And if you're not personally, kind of like me, I stay at home, but I'm more engaged through these apps. But your children are, and then your grandchildren, it's just nobody seems to be immune from it.
No, nobody is, and it's not, and it would be it's not that it's changed. It's just that it's changed who the gatekeepers are. I mean, that was the famous monkey trial where they were suing because they wouldn't allow evolution to be taught. So the right was not allowing certain ideas to be taught in public schools.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether you agree with that or not isn't the point. The point is
Yeah.
that this is not new. It's not like university and schools were this domain of free discourse forever. They never have been. They've been highly censored all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone will say, but that's different. Exactly. Everyone thinks their case is different.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks they're the except. They're like, no, we don't censor. We just uphold good morals. Well, that's censorship. Now, I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm not saying it's wrong, but that's what it is. Nobody's being honest about what's going on. This is not just a left problem.
So what about
This is a
if it
human
does
problem.
come to the way it is in Canada, about the way your churches, what your preachers can say and not
It will.
say?
It will at least. It will come to that at least practically.
Mm-hmm.
So the government may not be able to say we're going to put you in jail, but they can. But companies can say you can't have an iPhone or an Android phone. We will actually turn your phone off if we find out that you have in your church said something we don't agree with. That's what Twitter's saying.
Yeah.
Twitter's saying even if you don't tweet it,
Yeah.
if you say it in your church and we find out about it, we're taking you off Twitter. And then we would say, well, you just go to another app. Apple says, no. If Twitter takes you off, we're turning your phone off. Apple can push a button in their headquarters
Yeah.
and brick your phone. It would be completely useless. Will not make calls or anything. So can Google. These companies have the power to just say, you know what? You no longer are able to use your phone or your tablet, and it won't be long, and your computers will be the same way. Right now, PCs are still kind of impervious to that. You can still get around that with a PC, but they're very quickly. Apple is coming out with new chips, which are super fast. Everyone's real excited about them if you're into computers, because these chips are like groundbreaking and what they're doing, how fast they are, what they're able to do. But it's also making them essentially like an iDevice. So Apple will have the kind of authority over your PC as they now do over your phone and your tablet. It won't be long, and all companies will have absolute power over every device you have. And think about it. If you don't have a computer, if you don't have a phone, if you don't have a tablet, if you don't have any electronic device, how do you live in a digital world? You don't. You're dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're digitally dead.
Mm-hmm.
Means you. And what happens when your phone becomes your voting device? And it becomes your banking device.
Which it is.
But, well, right now it's like a window into your banking. What is it? What happens when it is your banking? See, the phone used to be a window into conversation. Now it is the conversation.
Is that why people are saying they won't let you, certain banks won't let you take out credit or use their card? I just read a headline.
If you're not woke enough?
Yes.
Yeah. No, they're all doing to this. We're all going to this. Where for you to have an opinion, this East Germany, this would be their dream. East Germany was known as one of the most repressive regimes ever in the world, in world history. Even more than North Korea, in the sense of knowing what every single person was doing, thinking, and saying at all times. I forget the number now, but it was an obscene amount of obscene percentage of East Germans actually worked for the government as spies. It was an enormous amount. I want to say like 25% of East Germans worked for the government as spies, spying on everybody.
Wow.
They had kids that were spying on their parents, working for the government, reporting as spies, or children spying on their parents. Everybody. And that made a huge culture of fear. Nobody knew who the spies were. Right? So then everybody was a spy in your mind.
Yeah.
So it's just this incredibly oppressive regime. They only dreamed of what is being implemented right now. The access
to have
people
that kind
have.
of access.
And what's crazy is in East Germany, they had to hire people to do it. Now, people are spying on themselves.
How do you mean?
We're taking our own. We're doing it ourselves.
Right.
We're taking our selfies and photographing our thing and recording
Everybody knows
everything
where
we're
you
saying
are at all times.
Yes, updating our status and doing our little live feeds. Everything we're doing, we're spying on ourselves. That's what we're doing right now. You and I, we are spying on ourselves, giving them all the information they need to know who we are, what we are, and they run this through extremely powerful algorithms. And they know who's a racist and who's a bigot and who's a phobe of whatever type of phobia is the thing of today. They know who a phobe is. They know who a bigot is. They know who all these people are because they run everything you do, say, and take pictures of through algorithms, and they know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
People think, and it could be true, people think that their phone is listening to them. Oh, yeah. Right? Because they'll start getting so ads. Weird. Yeah, they'll get ads. And it's possible. It certainly is possible. It's high, but what people need to realize that's even scarier idea than that. There's a scarier idea than that the phone is listening to you. And that is that they have algorithms that are so powerful. They have mined so much data that they can figure out what people are interested in just by analyzing their data.
You had a guest on your show that when you're scrolling through Facebook or you're scrolling through Instagram and you pause on some of the ads, they even know when you pause.
Yes, and how long you pause.
And how long you pause so they can keep. Yeah. That's why that's kept in mind. So if I'm not interested, definitely not interested, to do it real fast so that I don't even pause on it. Because, it's true.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed I've paused on several things, different ads that I might be interested in, and it's there all the time. It doesn't ever go away. I have the same ones over and over.
Exactly. But it's even worse. It's even scarier than that. It's not that is all things that you actively do. You click on it, you pause on it,
right?
You say something and they catch that. They can know who you are based on analyzing all data around and about you. Stuff you couldn't imagine would ever tell them anything about you.
And
they
why
can
should
know.
The average person care about that? If we're not running for politics, if we're not trying to be CEO of a big company.
Because what happens when they start deciding, anyone who exhibits these forms of behavior that our AI can track and figure out is no longer allowed to use our phones.
Mm.
What happens then? Mm-hmm. You wake up in the morning and your iPhone says you have been identified as a subversive.
Right, because they know who I follow on Twitter.
More than that, that is all extremely simple. Mm-hmm. Anybody, that kind of data that you're talking about, anybody with just access to what you look at could determine that. I'm talking about layers deeper. I'm talking about it's so complex that no human could actually run that algorithm themselves. These are enormous. I've worked in the places.
Even for somebody like me that I don't post pictures, I don't participate in Facebook or anything like that.
But you have pictures on your phone. They
Yes,
have
I have.
access to those pictures.
Okay.
They analyze those photos.
Okay.
The software of today can tell you who's in the photo, what's in the photo, and they can deduce from your photos
The kind of
more
person I
about you
am.
than you can possibly imagine.
Okay. That's where
Because
I was
it's no
wondering.
longer an individual doing this. You look at a photo and go, I could never figure that out. No person could. This is, I'm telling you, I've worked in these server farms.
Mhm.
These are buildings that are like that huge Walmart distribution center on the way to San Marcos, that enormous building.
Yeah.
They're like that big, full of computers, analyzing 24/7 your data.
Really?
Yeah. And finding connections, all unimaginable connections between them. You and most people, even myself, have no clue how powerful the algorithm has become.
And have they started doing that ever since 9/11, trying to track down
No,
terrorists?
this is not government. This is private companies. This is what Google's doing,
Oh, I
Apple's
see.
doing, Facebook is doing. That is why you get Facebook for free. The reason why you don't pay a subscription for Facebook or Twitter is because they get the data.
Mm,
And it has made them the richest people on earth,
yeah.
what they can do with that data. And not a single person in there knows exactly how it's happening. It is a huge monster that they've created that feeds upon itself, so it gets bigger as it eats more. So going back to the point is, if Apple, if Google, if whoever it is that makes the devices, forget about the software and the apps, the actual devices, they decide you're a subversive, well, then you're just no longer able to access any device. Not just yours. You pick up your friend's phone, the camera recognizes you and doesn't allow you to access it through your friend's phone. Every device we have has a front-facing camera. My computer has a camera on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They can step up to a computer, it sees it's you, and you're not allowed to access it. You are now digitally dead. They can murder you digitally. And if the world is digital, then that's as real of a murder in every
Yeah,
practical sense as
right.
actually murdering someone physically.
Right.
Imagine what your life would be if you were not allowed to access any electronic device or any electronic communication of any sort. People think, well, I can live without Twitter. Yeah, sure. Can you live without electronic banking?
Mm-hmm.
We used to think so, but now in the pandemic, can you live without electronic working from home? I mean, what you think you can live without electronics? Very few
Mm-hmm.
people can,
Yeah.
especially living a meaningful life.
Yeah.
Because we have made life, we've all done this. We have chosen to do this. So now the Christians who were sounding the alarm, telling people, although, the cranks, they were counted as cranks, these Christians are sounding the alarm, saying that all this digital stuff is a bad idea. They're all these crazy Luddites, right? Cranks, crazy Christians. Not sounding so crazy anymore, are they? They're starting to sound a little bit sane, starting to think, maybe they were onto something.
Mm-hmm.
Am I a downer?
Why would I expect anything different?
Which is funny that I think all this because, I'm one of the most technologically inclined people you know, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that doesn't say much, I have to say. I don't know anybody.
I'm very advanced. Just take
I
my
know.
word for
I
it.
know you are. I'm joking.
I'm incredibly
but
advanced.
I'm not the right person to ask. I don't know anybody else. So then where does that leave us? So this makes me think I am just more grateful than ever that I have a hope of something outside of this world and just a better government, because this is not, I we live here in the meantime though. So what do we do?
It's getting to a point where there is nothing we can do. I'm telling you, we're getting painted into a corner that there's no exit out of.
Yeah.
There's just no exit out of.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm worried about it. I tend not to because of the way person I am. I'm not a real doomsday person, so I don't worry a lot about these things because I just like you're a lot more doomsday than I am. So I'm not sure. Of course, more and more people I'm listening to are kind of saying what you're saying. How long does that take though for it to get that bad?
Not very long. These things work on an exponential scale, not linear. So they start slow, and when they get moving, they move very, very quickly. I mean, look how fast things have moved all of a sudden. And I think they're going to move a lot faster. I think Apple coming out, Apple and Google, to me, that was huge news. Probably the biggest news
It really is.
of of a year.
Talking about Twitter and doing what they did with Parler.
What they did with Parler.
Yeah.
That to me is the biggest news.
It really is.
Maybe of the year.
Yeah.
Because they are now signaling that you cannot have a different opinion at all.
Yeah.
That you will not be allowed on the devices that run your life. It's huge. If people haven't heard this, or if they heard it and they didn't think much of it, they don't realize it. This is huge. Mm-hmm. Huge.
Mm-hmm. Well, they were totally offline last night, and they're back on again. They said unless they have like 24 hours to compromise on a couple of things. So I don't know. And Dan Bongino is one of the owners, is part owner of, started it up. So I'm anxious to hear what he has to say about that.
I don't think he started it. They gave him equity stake. He's a big enough name that
I see.
That he promotes it, and that gets more people coming. So he has equity into it.
Promotes it a lot.
Yeah, well, he has equity. So as it does better, he does better.
Yeah.
So he has a financial interest in promoting it.
Yeah, that's a big deal, though.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge, and it's not it's not because it's Parler or Parlay.
No, I know. It's the whole message.
It's that Apple has decided we are now going to tell you what you can do on your phone. Mm-hmm. Down to a microscopic level, and we're going to keep tabs on it, and we're going to be watching that. Mm-hmm. Because see, it used to be for a company to do that would require tremendous resources to be caged. Think what it would take before that, before our modern time, for a company to decide you're not going to be able to do business with us if you have bad opinions. Well, they would have to be like East Germany. They have to hire millions of people to keep up with everybody.
Right.
Right. But they don't have to do that now because you're freely giving them the information about yourself.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost them anything to spy on you. You're spying on yourself. And now all they do is hit a button and apply the censorship on whoever they want. And then you can say, well, we don't want any censorship, which is ridiculous. Because I don't think anyone would object to Parler saying neo-Nazis are not allowed to speak on their platform. Mm-hmm. And they do. See, the idea that Parler is is the Wild West and is all open borders, that's not true. They have terms of service just like everyone else.
Of course, yes.
Because there's crazy
to.
people.
Right.
It's like the baking.
We live in the real world.
It's like the baker illustration.
Yeah, yeah.
You can say, I think a baker ought to be able to bake a cake for whoever he wants and not for anyone he doesn't want to. Except for mixed races, blacks, Jews, there you go. Good. All these, okay, yeah. That's not right. He can't say he's not going to bake a Jew a cake. That's wrong. We don't want that society. Because that's different. Mm-hmm. It's only different when you're looking at it from a value proposition.
Yeah, a moral
It's
lens.
not different when you're looking at it from a mathematical perspective.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Right.
2 + 3 = 5. 3 + 2 = 5. Those are different, but they're the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's this mess and this goes back to what I'm saying. All of these things, with all the sophistication that I'm talking about in the algorithms, they are extremely blunt instruments. All of these things. We want a society where people are loving. Now, we're all going to define that a little differently, which is part of the problem. It's a huge part of the problem. But we want a society where people are loving. So we're going to legislate it. We're going to censor it into existence. We're going to engineer it into existence. We're going to AI it into existence. None of that works. Those are all blunt instruments, every single one of them. It doesn't matter how sophisticated their AI gets, it's blunt. There's no solution there. None. I'm not doomsday. That's just reality. Because I'm very optimistic. I don't sit around and...
What are you optimistic about in this case?
Well, I just don't think it's... I just think it is what it is. I mean, that's just life. Life is going to be that way, and I'm optimistic. I'll tell you what, I'm optimistic that there's going to be a huge solar flare real soon. That would be so good.
And what would the solar flare do?
It would wipe out all electronics across the entire Earth.
Well, you just said we can't live without electronics.
Well, we'll have to learn. Well, we can't live with it because we live in a digital world. In other words, you can't live without electronics if the world is digital. But if the world in one instance becomes analog...
Well, you can't... How do you do that? With the solar flare, then that cuts out what? Like your gas tank, your gas station?
Everything. Everything that's electronic dies.
That is nothing to be optimistic about.
Oh, that would be so great.
Oh, Michael. It'd be crazy.
It'd be a reset. It's the great reset.
You're insane.
You know what happens? Solar flare is going to take out not only all electronics.
You realize I can't even make a fire without...
Oh, a lot of people will die.
Little logs.
A lot of people are going to die from that, no doubt. Yeah. I know. I have to help you. The people who can hunt and gather and farm, they might be okay.
And there's a lot of men out there with soft hands.
Oh, lots of them. Shake their hands every day. Feel like I'm shaking a girl's hands.
Oh, stop. Just saying, they don't do labor.
No, well, a solar flare will completely wipe out everything.
Okay, well,
and then we're
helpful.
reset.
What else are you optimistic about?
But this is well, I'm obviously, like you say, I'm optimistic about the eternal future. And I just don't put any, well, like I was saying, these things we're trying to do, let's assume for the sake of argument that everything that everybody is against and wanting to censor is all morally bad. So racism is morally bad. Obviously, I agree with that. But let's just say anything anyone says they object to is morally bad. We're not arguing about whether it's good or bad. It's all bad. Everything that anyone objects to is bad. But you can't fix it with what they're doing because it's too blunt. Because at the bottom of all of this, of every social evil anyone wants to point out, whether it be racism, abortion, intolerance, homophobia, whatever it is. Anyone has their pet thing that they say is evil. At the bottom of that evil, it exists because people want to do it. As long as people want to do it, there is no scalpel sharp enough to cut that out of them.
Yeah.
There's no legal scalpel. There's no digital scalpel. There is no knife sharp enough to cut asunder, using King James language, to cut asunder what people want to do. This is what Paul deals with in Romans. One of the huge points of Romans is that as long as you want to do it, there is no solution to fix that. You have to not want to do it. It's the only solution. The only solution to sin is to not want to do it. It's the only one.
Yeah.
As long as somebody wants to commit sin, there's no solution. None whatsoever. You are destined to it.
Yeah.
It's like dieting. I use the example all the time because to me it's a great example. As long as you want to eat things that make you fat, no diet works.
Yeah.
They just don't work. because that is the underlying
It
problem.
has no power over you.
Right. You are trying to keep yourself from you're wanting to not want what you want.
Yeah.
It's really that contradictory, that foolish.
Mm-hmm.
You want to not want what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Paul describes it in Romans 7. He says, the things I want to do, I can't. And the things I don't want to do, that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Paul's describing in Romans 7. He's describing the inner turmoil of not wanting to want what you want. And there's no winning there.
Right.
And there is no body of legislators. There's no body of censors. There's no body of, there is no element, no instrument out there sharp enough to cut that out. This is why the gospel works. The gospel changes what you want. And it's why what Paul says is that when we get saved, that happens. As long as we realize that we are dead to sin, we no longer want it.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like such a oversimplified answer, but it is the only actual answer there can be. So how do you get people to not do things they shouldn't do? They have to not want them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just the Apple and Google and the U.S. government and everyone else has no answer for that. They can't fix that. They're trying to really, really, really hard, but they can't.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like every other addiction, right? You can get people to not want to drink by giving them cigarettes. You can get people to not smoke cigarettes by giving them something else. They replace. But
it.
the wanting of something that is destructive to you and those around you,
Mm-hmm.
the wanting of something that is immoral, you just can't get rid of that. So we get rid of people not wanting to be immoral when it comes to, say, race relations. But then they become obscenely immoral when it comes to sexual relations.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm very optimistic. You bring out the optimism in me.
I can see that.
I can see that.
Well, nothing solved, really.
No, there's no solution. I'm very curious. I am excited about these developments. I mean, I'm not happy about them, but I'm very excited. I mean, it's amazing. To me, what's happening right now is astounding. I think we are on the cusp. We are on the threshold of an entirely different world. I think people are just seeing the glimpse of the rays of the light coming up over the horizon. I say light. It's not. I don't think it's a good thing.
You think we would have seen this if Trump was reelected, or it would have just been on pause?
I think we would have, but they didn't.
Inevitable.
Inevitable, yes. It would have been hard. Trump, if he'd been reelected, he would have had a certain amount of power and to go after big tech and break them up and do stuff like that, which is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
It's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And
we
as a society,
upset with him that he didn't do that already.
Oh no, he was stupid. Trump.
Yeah. I know. Let's not go off on that.
Trump,
okay. Anyway, yes, he should have done that.
He should have done a lot of things. He did nothing. The guy was, oh my goodness, I can't believe these Trumpers who think he's the greatest president ever. He did one, as far as I can find. You got me on it. He did one good thing that I know of.
You've already made that very clear.
The legislature, the judiciary.
Right.
That I was impressed. I was truly impressed with what he accomplished in the judiciary. That to me, and it wasn't just him. That's not just a Trump thing. I mean, he had to be there. Wouldn't have happened without him. There had to be someone willing to nominate them. He was. I think he was out of his depth on judicial appointments, and he went with the Federalist Society, and they've been working a lot of years. This is not something that people have the idea that Trump came in and like had this card up his sleeve, and he's like, and everyone's like, what? No, it is so celebrity culture minded of us to think that you have this celebrity, he's going to come and solve everything. People or groups like the Federalist Society have been working for decades, maneuvering, vetting judges, talking to them, doing really hard, a lot of extremely hard and expensive work.
Yeah.
How do you know which judge is going to be good in your view, according to your value
Because the
system?
work's already done for you. You've already.
Well, I mean,
they've
just if
been
it's
doing
not,
it. Mhm.
right? I mean, to the beginning, when the people who did the work, how do they know? Well, can you imagine the amount of time and effort these people put into vetting thousands of judges all over the country, so that when they came up and had an opportunity to recommend judges, they were
Mhm.
recommending the right ones,
Yeah.
right? Because
Right.
they got burned. They got burned with Kennedy. They
Mhm.
got burned with John Roberts.
Mhm.
They got burned with a bunch of these judges who they thought were good and turned out to be
Yeah,
not
not
good.
what they
I say
wanted.
good in their view. I
Yeah.
understand if you're left, you think they're horrible, whatever.
Yeah.
That's my point is, if you're from their point of view, who they consider to be a good judge, if put it this way, if we never had a Democratic president, we would still have a left of center court. The court would still be left of center because the judges that have gone left,
Mhm.
more than half have been nominated by Republicans.
Hmm.
More than half.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you go back and look at the names.
So
it's crazy.
anyway, back to the big tech. They can. So if I would assume Biden is not going to go after them.
Well,
so say
here's
somebody
the
does. So we
thing.
get a president and he
No,
does.
let's talk about Biden.
Okay.
Here's the thing, and this is what the left always forgets.
Mhm.
Remember all these leftists like Brett Weinstein
Mhm.
whining about left and how the left is so terrible? He's the left.
Right.
He was the left forever.
Mhm.
Now they've turned on him,
Mhm.
and they eat their own.
Well, he wouldn't
Biden,
consider himself a right winger. He would still consider himself a left.
I know, but
a
now he's
leftist.
all up in arms about how the left treats people,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Okay. So what?
They
About
turn
Biden.
on their own.
Yeah.
No one's safe.
No, no one is.
No one, but the right does it too.
Mhm.
Like I said, Ronald Reagan would be tarred and feathered and driven out of the Republican Party today. That's where the Republican Party is.
Right.
They're that way too. They're calling Lindsey Graham a traitor.
Mhm.
Anyone who didn't also march on the Capitol, they're calling them traitors, even though they're the right. So they're all doing it. They're all turning on their own. Biden isn't safe. That's why they constantly have to reaffirm their wokeness. All of them do. Constantly. Because as soon as they trip up a little bit,
Oh yeah, they're after him.
they're going to be after 'em.
Mhm.
And they'll be censoring them too. If Biden, what happens when Biden has to engage in war that Twitter doesn't approve of? What happens if he bombs someone who Facebook doesn't approve of? You think he's going to be safe because they're going to be like he's our guy? If he sends troops back into Iraq, you think that's going to be okay?
Mhm.
He does a deal with some country that has a gay person on trial and going to be beheaded. They're not going to have a problem with that. They're not going to say, you're not allowed on Twitter, not only because of the things you tweet, but also anything you say from the office.
Mhm.
Apple and these companies are saying, if the president performing his own office speaks from the White House something we don't like, we will cancel them. They will no longer be allowed to speak on our platform. That's the power that they just got a taste of.
Yeah. Yeah.
You think that they're somehow going to be responsible with that power?
Right. Right.
No, we just now have a brand new group of leaders.
Yep. That is true.
We have Apple, Facebook, they're the leaders. No one voted for them. They are now in charge of the country. Some senator supports a law that they don't agree with, banned, not just from Twitter. He no longer can access any electronic device. What does that mean for them? That means they can't get reelected. Apple decides which politicians get elected. Facebook, Apple, Google, they decide who gets elected. They decide what laws get to be passed. The democracy that everyone thinks they live in is gone. Today died. It's over. You're gonna break them up? How? How are you gonna get that message out? You think that Apple, Google, Facebook, Twitter are gonna allow you to get out a message of, say, let's break up big tech? No. It's a technocracy. That's what we live in today.
So you had mentioned when the two senators lost in Georgia, then I had asked you how easy is it now to push their agenda through? And you said, well, it might be a little bit harder because we don't realize that the people have a lot of say. Like, what was it that you had said? They have say and financial pull in some of these.
It's not that they have say. It's that the machinery of the United States is huge.
So can you use that also against big tech? Like,
no.
Again, because not a lot of people are on Twitter in the grand scheme of things. Very few people are.
But everybody has a phone. That's what I'm saying. Forget about Twitter.
Okay.
People are focusing. Everyone, including myself, thought,
because I
who's allowed on Twitter? Forget about the apps.
Okay.
It is now the devices. Forget about the apps and what you're allowed to do on the apps.
Okay.
They control the device itself, the actual phone. What are you going to do without your phone?
So how do you get the government to start putting restrictions on these big tech companies?
There is almost I find that to be
as a regular citizen, we can't do anything.
No, I mean, how are you going to do it? Are you going to email?
I don't know. Do you protest?
How are you going to protest? You're going to email them? You're going to call them? That's all on your device. They control your device. How are you going to contact them?
I don't think how is that possible that a whole bunch of people can't call their congressman?
Because they control the device. What are they going to
do? Stop the calls?
Yeah. They can absolutely not allow you to call that number.
I don't know if they're there yet.
No, they're there. Terri, trust me.
I don't think they're doing that
I'm not saying they're doing that. I'm saying they can do that. Okay. It is already built in. It's already there. They can censor who you talk to on the phone. How many people do you know have a landline and a rotary telephone? People don't realize we completely gave them the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah, I know.
When we bought these phones, these devices, tablets, phones, new computers, all of these things are so linked and it is so tied in, and they control all of it. They actually control the device itself. Mm-hmm. And they can determine what gets said and read on that device, not you. You pay them $1,200 for it, and you don't own not one bit of it.
No, right. How fun.
Yeah. I'm telling you, this is the biggest news of the year.
And it just started.
Yes. So now we have this benign dictator, which is Apple and Google mainly, because they control 99% of all communication devices in the world. Apple and Google. Google makes Android, and Apple makes the iPhone.
Yeah, so they are saying to start using other search engines. Like I was hearing, like stop using Google, use other search engines.
Again,
does that help?
Software. That's the software. Google owns the device. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what app you load on if you can't access the device.
Yeah, yeah.
They own all the devices. And you realize other people, I could make a Twitter in probably about 2 weeks. It wouldn't be popular. Nobody would be on it. I mean, nobody even listens to my podcast, so nobody's going to be on my Twitter, right? But I could. I have the technical skill. I could make a Twitter.
Yeah.
A platform. I can't make an iPhone. Nobody can make an iPhone. That's billions of dollars of research.
Yeah.
Billions. There's only a few companies in the world that are capable of making those devices, and that's the hardware, not counting the software of the operating system that makes it work, all of and the infrastructure and the cloud and everything else. You're talking about probably like if some right-wing multi-billionaire said, I'm going to replace Apple, he couldn't even scratch the surface with his money. Elon Musk, with the richest man on earth, I don't think could make an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you can't imagine your life without a smartphone. I mean, really. I mean, people like to say they can.
Yeah.
They have no clue.
Yeah, no.
Because it isn't just about what you do with it in your hand.
Yeah.
It's everyone you interact with that does things for you with it. The whole world is running on this.
Yes.
If you don't think that your life would change without smartphones, then why would a solar flare bother you? Right? I don't mean you. I just mean a person who says, oh, I can live without them. Really? Then you shouldn't mind a solar flare. Huge solar flare, wipe out electronics, you wouldn't notice. Oh, you would notice.
Mm-hmm.
You would absolutely notice.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately, you would notice.
Yeah.
Even if it was a very selective solar flare that only wiped out the personal devices, not gas pumps and things like that, just phones. Just wiped out every phone in the world, every cell phone in the world, gone. You would definitely notice. Your life would get real bad real fast.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have these benevolent dictators. They control these companies and they control our lives. They absolutely control our lives. And there's no way out. So yeah, Trump should have broken up tech. That should have been his number one thing. He should have reformed elections. He should have completely revamped the electoral system. And he should have broken up the tech companies, broken them down to little pieces.
Right.
And probably that wouldn't have worked, but he should have done it. Because like with Standard Oil, when they did that, they broke up Standard Oil a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And John Rockefeller got like super rich after that. Because then he had stake in a whole bunch of companies and they all grew. Because a company gets so big and then it's hard for it to keep growing. And when you break it up forcefully, then every one of them start competing and they all start growing. Then all of a sudden you have something that's 10 times bigger than it originally was.
Wow.
So he became the wealthiest man in history. John Rockefeller did. Because
but at
they
least
broke
there would
up.
be competition.
Yeah. I don't know it'd make a difference. That is how I define and describe the knowledge of good and evil. When it says that Adam and Eve ate the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, it is the power to not be able to unknow anything. That's how I describe it. And so once we know something as a humanity knows something, we can't unknow it. That's why, you could a solar flare could wipe out our society and we would rebuild it. It's like all these old cities, these ancient cities that would be built like by a river and the river would destroy it, or some type of natural disaster would destroy it. And many of them would be rebuilt on top. Nineveh was rebuilt a number of times on top of itself. Jericho was rebuilt a number of times on top of itself. Babylon was rebuilt on top of itself.
Instead of closing it down.
Instead of just
starting
walking off and
something
doing it
different.
somewhere else, we rebuild on top. It's like the Twin Towers. They blew it down, and just a few years later, another big old tower standing up right in its place. Because we just can't unknow what we know. We just don't have we have the power to not be able to unknow. It's very, very dangerous power.
Yeah.
Well, we're out of time. I wanted to talk to you about giraffes and all kinds of stuff I'd read. I'll tell you one thing that I found very interesting. I don't know if you will find this interesting, talking about technology. Scientists have discovered one of the most amazing things I've read, that our radio communications that we use, which is everything basically, everything's wireless.
Yeah.
Your phone, Everything is, that's all radio waves. Your Wi-Fi, all of this is radio communications. There's our watches, our clocks, TVs, it's all Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah.
It's all radio.
Right.
The radio waves coming off the Earth are pushing the solar radiation away from us.
What does that mean? Like,
Well, radiation's bad.
so it's pushing it away from us.
Yes. They've noticed that there is like some barrier holding back a significant amount of radiation that comes that comes at the Earth from the sun. And they've noticed that there's this barrier like pushing it back. And they weren't sure where it was coming from. It's coming from our radio communications.
Oh my.
Our digital devices are saving our lives, literally. So when people say I would die without my phone, they're absolutely true.
So there's always a silver lining.
There is. There's a huge silver
Literally.
barrier. You would literally die without your phone.
Mm.
So that's good news. So see, I am an optimist at heart.
That's funny. That's so weird.
It is
It's
weird.
that much.
There's that much communication. You want to know how much your life depends on these devices?
Mm-hmm.
There is enough of them going on, enough of this radio communication happening, that it is pushing back the Earth's radiation. That is how dependent we are on this stuff. So if you wanna save the planet, you need to buy more phones.
All right. It's time to upgrade.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for being on with me.
Mm-hmm.
I always love it. You're my favorite guest,
yeah.
always. Love talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to you later.
All right, babe.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.